Hey guys, how's it all going? Here we are, Tuesday night again. And we've got a few in the room already. Wow, 11 of you. Cool. Kerosene Cucumbers. That's a new name. I don't think I've seen that name before. But welcome along. 6th Street Garage. Good to have you here. Josh Homan. Good to have you here. Roy Miller. David Tyree. Cool, guys. So, tell me, what's been happening? Let me try and get a bit of light in this situation. That's a bit better. Right. Well, Paul Funk, old timer. Yeah, the gang's here. That's cool. So, what's been going on, fellas? Who's been working on their cars, and who's just been too damn hot to try? I've been too darn hot to try, but I kind of had to anyway. So, yes. So, looks like a lot of you saw the F100 video, so that was good. It was hard yakka, as we say in New Zealand, hard yakka. Especially on my own, with no one to help, manhandle that rear axle and frame section around. But we got there. So, old timer working on logging equipment. Good on you, man. Paul Funk 101 here. Ouch. But they say it's a dry heat. Yeah. Hot. 101's 101, man. There is a little bit of a difference. When it's 101 and really humid, it's pretty brutal. But, it was 96 here today, and they said the heat index was like 106. So I'm not sure what it was in the shop, but it must have been, this afternoon had to have been pushing 100 pretty easy, I'd say. Because we're in the middle of a huge, black parking lot, which ramps up the heat. And there's minimal insulation on the building because it's an old building. So, yeah, it was hot. But, I bailed at 4:30. 4:30 I was done. It's like, I'm out of here, which is, a good hour early for me, but it's like, wow. Old timer, 45 degrees here in New Hampshire this morning at 6:30. That's nice and cool. I could handle 45 degrees at the moment. Stray Bullet, hey man, how you doing? Good to have you here. So what's going on, guys? What's the topic of conversation tonight? What out of left field subject are we going to come up with? Jeff Hutchins, I made it. Just finished bluing guns, my least favourite gunsmithing job. This batch was especially hard. Okay. Now, bluing guns, remind me, is that where you heat them up really hot and then dunk them in oil? And that's bluing, isn't it? I think, if I remember from my engineering classes at school. But if that's wrong, tell me about it. Oh, fuck. How to install muffler bearings. Right. Yes. So I got quite a few smart aleck comments on my blurring of my last video, that F100 video. Yes, I was a little horrified when I started editing that video and went, putting the camera behind me is not such a good idea. It wasn't until I actually looked at it later that day. It was like, oh. Never mind. Stray Bullet, are you ready to test your New Zealand automotive history, Kiwi? Well, I'll give it a crack, man. Oh, okay. Beagle Bob, bluing is nickel coating, control chemical conversion to prevent oxidization. Okay. Wonder what I'm thinking of then. I remember we did that to something we made in school in engineering. We heated the hell, got it hot and dunked it in oil, and it kind of turned it a bluish black, and never corroded. It was kind of quite amazing. Okay, Stray Bullet, what you got for me? What's the New Zealand automotive history? Noah Kneeling Well, I shouldn't say no because I'm none for one at the moment. Tonight. But annealing is when you heat a metal that's hardened and then let it cool naturally. That I believe is annealing. Like copper and aluminum and stuff like that have a tend to get hard when you're hammering them and working them, and then you heat them up to kind of close to a melting point and then let them cool naturally, and that allows the molecules to relax, and that's my understanding of what annealing is. Stray bullet. What year was the first Ford dealership established in New Zealand? Wow, that's a tough one. That's well before my time, I'm sure. I remember where she lived right next door to a Ford dealership in Taranaki, New Zealand, in Hawera. A place called Spinix Motors, and he was the Ford dealer. So that was back in the early 60s or mid 60s. Old timer. The Google says that's oil hardening. Okay. Stray bullet. Annealing is done to soften metal. Yep, that's what I thought. David Tyree. Bluing is the first stage of rusting. Okay, didn't know that. Wasn't aware of that. Beagle Bob, annealing, should be softening or doing heat treatments for brittleness. Brass gets annealed for reloading after several shots to keep the casings workable. Okay. Huh. Jeff Hutchins, there we go. It's a hot chemical process, totally disassemble, prep to steel, wash in non-caustic boiling soap, put in salts at 295 degrees, rinse, boil to remove salts, immerse in water, displacing oil, reassemble. Huh. Well, there you go. Old timer. I'm a dumb wood booger logger, not a blacksmith. There you go. Yeah, I'm a fabricator, but not a blacksmith. But yeah, I didn't know about annealing. If you're working with sheet aluminum and you're really trying to shape it, you do have to sometimes anneal it. Paul Funk, what were the first cars to be either built or imported into New Zealand? Trying to remember. I think it was a French car, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I probably am, because that's a little bit of a guess, but I see that pings in my memory for some reason that it was French, sort of definitely European, and I think it was French. There you go. All other answers welcome. Entertained. Yeah. So, okay. Well, let's talk about the shop. What's going on in the shop? Right now, this week, we've got a K5 Blazer in there. We're doing some stupid shit to it. It came from another hot rod shop, and just a bunch of stuff's not been finished off properly. So we're fixing that up. Not a big fan of the car. I may or may not do a video on it, to be honest. It's got like gigantic wheels on it, tall wheels, big diameter wheels, and it's lifted to hell. I actually genuinely struggle to get in it. I haven't got very good knees, admittedly, but and the guy's bought it for his wife. It's like, okay, she better not be wearing a miniskirt when she's trying to get in, but hey. So anyway, we'll come back to that. Old timer, just seen a 72 Maverick roller with a 9-inch rear, basically no rust, no interior. $2,000, too far away for me in New York. Okay, yeah, $2,000. If it is basically no rust, then that's not bad money. Be hard to find one around New York with no rust in it, I imagine. Beagle Bob, bluing, plating, chroming, parkerizing, and anodizing are all similar, right? The point is to have the chemical reaction that produces a surface that will not rust when exposed to oxidizing substances. Okay. It's very hard to get anodizing done these days. Not many places are interested in doing, the plating shops. Very few of them around here anyway. I obviously can't speak for all of America, but around here it's very hard to find someone who wants to do anodizing. Which is a problem because a lot of the trim on the era cars that I tend to work on have anodized, grill parts, side trim, that kind of thing. Stray Bullet, 1908, the year the Model T was introduced. Okay. Oh, hang on. And right below that, we got old timers saying Model T was 1919. Okay. Granddad's Junk, welcome along, man. G'day, brother. Good to have you here. Jeff Hutchins. People think there's a different bluing to get matte or polished blue. It's actually all in the prep. Bead blasting it, you get matte polish. You get shiny, polish it, you get shiny blue. Blue is in the same tank at the same, blued in the same tank at the same time. Okay, I get you. Just depending on what surface it goes on. Okay. Jeff Hutchins, essentially it's super fast controlled rust. Well, you learn something every day. I was completely wrong on all that. Stray Bullet, 1908, old timer. Old timer, I guess 1919. The Model T came out in 1908, but old timers, I think, saying that they guess that they came into New Zealand in 1919. I think that's what he means. So what year was the first automobile imported into New Zealand? Not sure where I got the French thing from, but hey. It has been a very long, hot day, so, you got to cut me a little bit of slack today. Craig Nearing, hit the thumbs up, guys. Yeah, hit that like button. It does help. Same with the videos. If you guys are watching any of my videos, hit the like, hit the share. The share helps a lot. It doesn't matter how many you share it with, just the fact that you share it, just YouTube likes that interaction from the viewers. So it helps quite a lot. So yeah, like, share, it'd be good. Brad Eastham, a Wellington man imported the first cars into New Zealand, 2 Mercedes-Benz car from a Paris showroom. Or maybe that's where I got it from. Okay. That's wild to think about, isn't it? Like, that was the first 2 cars in New Zealand. And the day before they arrived on a boat, there was no cars in New Zealand. It's kind of, that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. Old timer, no Kiwi. I thought 19 was when Ford introduced it. I mucked it all up, mate. That's all right. I'm a little frazzled today myself, so yeah, don't feel bad at all. Stray Bullet, 2 Benz cars, 1898. Wow, how wealthy was that guy? I mean, really, like how in the scheme of things, and like the amount of money to go around in a little wee country like New Zealand, which, gosh, in 1898, that New Zealand probably only had, I'd be completely guessing, but, maybe 100,000 people, maybe, if that, in 1898, probably less. He must have been one of the, aristocracy to be able to afford 2 Mercedes-Benz and bring them into New Zealand. That's pretty wild. Jeff Hutchins, Craig Nearing, thanks for the reminder. Yeah, thanks, guys. Old timer. Oh, you messed that up. Old timer, Gord, not Ford, damn it. You mean Ford, not Gord. Laurel Flint, and only 106 years ago. So what's 106 years ago? Because 106 years ago is 19. Oh, that's the 1919 date. Yeah. Stray Bullet, filthy rich. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that must have been. Yeah, and it's funny to think someone that wealthy in sleepy little New Zealand, like you'd think the really rich people would have been staying in England and places like that, rather than coming out, heading to what was essentially a fairly uncivilized country at that point. Um, yeah, so it's interesting. Wonder what motivated them to be that wealthy and head to New Zealand. Jeff Hutchins is a Ford with a PH. Yes. So anyway, back to the shop. Yeah, we got this. We got a Mustang in there. We're putting an AC pump on. That's not very exciting. And what else is going on? Obviously, been working on the F100. I went to get the drive shaft shortened this week, like Monday, and talking with the drive shaft guy. We were going to have to make a complete new drive shaft for it because we could, in theory, have shortened it's a two-piece drive shaft. So we could have shortened the rear section, but that would have created an issue with the angles, with having the center bearing. It would have made the rear part of it like too steep. According to him, you need about 40% of your length of a two-piece drive shaft on the front half and about 60% on the rear half. And we were going to end up with the reverse of that, about 60% of the length on the front, 65%, and sort of 35-40% on the back. So given that issue and the fact that I was really wanting to put the 4-speed in it that I've got, change it out from the 3-speed, which I haven't really learnt to love. So it's like, let's just fire the 4-speed into it now. I was going to do it when we pull the engine out, engine and box out to do the Crown Vic front suspension. But it's like, the drive shaft's out now. 4 bolts between the gearbox and the bell housing. We can slide the 3-speed out, slide the 4-speed in. The 4-speed's 7.5 inches longer than the Ford gearbox. Not Ford gearbox, sorry, but the 3-speed truck gearbox. It's essentially just a 3-speed top loader, but for whatever reason, they made the tail shaft a lot shorter on the truck, probably all to do with that 2-piece drive shaft. So we're going to go to a 1-piece drive shaft, bang the 4-speed in it. So we'll have a nice healthy 302, 4-speed transmission, which is just a bit easier to drive. The 3-speed the truck's got quite a tall rear gear, especially for a truck. It'd do 40 mile an hour in first gear, which is kind of fun, but it's very hard to do a quick hill start, or if you've got any load on it to do a decent hill start. You really had to ride the clutch to kind of get it going because it had a overly tall. I think someone might have changed out the rear gear in it. I suspect that truck probably had a lower gear once upon a time in the rear, and that made the 3-speed more sensible. But now I believe they put a tall rear gear in it, and that's made first quite big. So it's a little hard to get it moving, especially if you're in. It's all right if you're just putting away from the lights, but if you want to get away quickly or you're up a steep hill, it's a little hard to get it rolling. So, in goes the 4-speed, 1-piece drive shaft, and we're good to go. Craig Nearing, it's really small in 1898, yeah. Yeah, mate, you weren't even a thought in your daddy's mind at that point, were you? Yeah. Andy Nickel, hey, man, welcome along. Good to have you here. Stray bullet. It's kind of like rich guys coming to California during the gold rush. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Stray bullet, the new frontier. Yeah, well, I guess it was exciting and new. And it wasn't like you could get on Google and research New Zealand before you went over there. It was all just, what word of mouth and, a little bit of what you got in the press, I guess, the newspapers back then. David Tyree, the importer was William McLean, Liberal Party Member of Parliament. Oh, look at that. A poor Member of Parliament. Imagine that. Yeah. Yes. Stray bullet, just use one drive shaft. Yeah, well, that's what we're doing. We're putting a one-piece drive shaft in it, get rid of that hanger bearing because it's a 1.5 foot shorter now, or 16 inches. So yeah, we can run with a one-piece drive shaft and less vibrations and just better all around. Jeff Hutchins, when the 99 Super Duty came out, my dad and I were coming back from elk hunting in his 97 Dodge Cummins. We saw our first one. I said, hey, look, a fudge. He laughed for about 5 minutes. Yes. Granddad's junk in 1898, the biggest problem would have been keeping the spears out of the radiator. There's probably some truth to that, man. There's probably some truth to that. It was, yeah, I'd have to kind of, I don't know really what stage they were at that date, as far as it being a developing country. Yeah, there'd be probably some truth to that, right? But I imagine the locals would have been found a motor car pretty terrifying. Having the locals, the indigenous people would never have seen anything like that. So yeah, it would have been pretty wild. Stray bullet, my ramp truck had 3 drive shafts. Yeah, well, as long as you keep putting hanger bearings in, you can keep making them longer and longer. But they can be a little problematic. Like everything's got to be in good shape. Well, they start to whip. But yeah, no, you can definitely do it. They work well, but yeah, they just they've got to be kept in good shape. But I mean, it's really just what you got to do with your car, isn't it? David Tyree, New Zealand population in 1898 was about 776,114. That's more than I would have guessed. That's a lot more than I would have guessed. I remember when I was a little kid, the population which was like probably 66-ish, I'm remembering, the population was 1.5 million. So in 65 years, 60-ish years, the population didn't grow that much. Interesting. Pop's Mustang shop. Are you putting in a granny low 4-speed? No. No, it's a 4-speed out of a Mustang. So it's a regular 4-speed, which, yeah, I mean, the granny low, was a great idea for a true farm truck. Gave you that effective low ratio. But no, we don't need it and don't really want it. I want just a conventional 4-speed that I can get off the lights, briskly if I want to. And, with the tall rear diff, it'll still, cruise quite nicely. But yeah, honestly, that the first gear that's in it with that 3-speed is, you can do it's not hard to do 40. Like, you don't have to really rev it hard. You're revving it a bit, admittedly, but not. I don't know. I'm going to say about 3,700 RPM is about 40 mile an hour in first gear. So it's a very tall first gear. Like you come to even if you're rolling through a right turn, it's still, you pop it down to first because it lugs. You get below 20 mile an hour and it lugs in second gear. It'll just choke and it just doesn't really want to get going. It will, but it's not happy. Jeff Hutchins, most of my trucks have 3 drive shaft, two in the back, 1 in the front. There you go. Yes. Laurel Flynn, it's called Seeking Your Fortune. My great-grandfather went from Ireland to Australia to New Zealand, then off to the Klondike before settling in New Zealand. Klondike, was he following the gold in the Klondike? That seems to be what it's famous for. Kerosene cucumbers. I didn't see the whole video yet. Did you box the frame? No, I didn't box the frame. I diamond plated it. When you box the frame around, like a lot of people will put it like a must say a 12-inch section of boxing on the inside of where they've cut the frame. It gets a bit too rigid, and it can cause problems because the frames are very flexible, and you need to try and, once you've welded and joined it, you need to try and maintain as much of that flexibility so you get a consistent twist down the length, because if you got really rigid in the middle and the back and the front are twisting a lot, that's when you can start cracking shit. So you need to try and design in or keep as much flex as you can. And boxing, if you're going to box it, you need to box all the frame, which I wasn't interested in doing. It's not a competition vehicle. If I wanted to do autocross in it and stuff like that, then either put an aftermarket frame under it or box the frame. But some people will box them just around the area of the splice, shall we say, and it's probably be okay, but it's not the most correct way to do it. Stray bullet, U-joints last around 70,000 miles. Yeah, they will. The hanger bearings in my experience, don't seem to last that long. And tell you what, if you had one of those like collapse on you, you know there's a major problem. Once that drive shaft starts to whip around a couple of inches, if that rubber around the hanger bearing goes, it's quite violent. It's quite violent. Like you're reduced to driving very slowly. It's not like a U-joint starts to go or fail, not breaks, but wears out and starts to chew itself up. They'll vibrate and they might clunk a bit. But tell you what, when that center hanger bearing goes, that's you have no option but to get that fixed immediately. Often you'll know the U-joints are going and you'll feel it. It'll vibrate a little bit and just clunk a bit, and you can kind of stretch it out a little while if you need to. But that hanger bearing, no, that's violent. Anyway, Jeff Hutchins. My 95 Dodge Crew Cab has a two-wheel drive NP 4500 gear vendor overdrive. Ford divorced NP 205 behind that, so I can split gears in two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. Wow. The front drive shaft had the carrier bearing. It's way longer. Yeah, I bet it is, because that overdrive hangs a lot off the back, doesn't it? But slightly earlier F100, like the 67 to 72, the bump side is their nickname. They were available with an overdrive, a 3-speed with an overdrive. And that was, I don't know who made the overdrive unit. I don't know whether it's the same. I don't know that it's the same as that gear vendors one, but they put them in some of the old Thunderbirds as well. But they discontinued the overdrive option for the dent side truck. Now, Andy Nicol, I saw a metallurgist on Twin Stick Garage who said there was no benefit to welding a lap or Z joint when shortening a frame. Something to do with the way steel breaks and flexes. Okay. No benefit. So what was he saying? Just do a vertical cut, just a straight cut? I don't know. I mean, you're always going to get varying opinions, and I did expect, when I did that video, I did expect to get some different opinions in the comments, which I did. It'll be on Twin Stick Garage. If I get a minute and I remember, I might go and try and have a look at that. I'll be interested to see what his reasoning is for that. But I've had a metallurgist tell me the opposite to that. So I don't know. Steel does, steel breaks and flexes, that's for sure. But that's why, like with the, some people will put a fish plate in, and there's diamond shaped ones like I did, rectangular squares, just long skinny ones. There's anything you can think of, and some people will weld the complete perimeter. And what I've had explained to me by people much smarter than myself is that welding the whole perimeter is a bad idea, because it gets too rigid. It won't flex. You need to stitch weld it on there. And in my head, I can see the logic in that. That makes sense in my brain. So I run with that, and I haven't had one break. So, but I don't think it would be hard to find two engineers / metallurgists that disagree on the best way to do it. Brad Eastham, hey mate, welcome along. Wellington became the Detroit of New Zealand. GM, Ford, Mitsubishi, and others, including most English brands, right up to the 1980s. Yeah, we had a lot of different cars in New Zealand. Even a modest number of American stuff coming in new, because the biggest problem was most of what we got, I believe, was Canadian models. They were because we had to get right-hand drive, but Canadians left-hand drive, isn't it? For some reason, I remember them being Canadian models, whether they assembled them there and with an eye to exporting them, whereas the American market, they just made them for the American market. They weren't really interested in what the rest of the world was doing. They were having trouble keeping up with the demand, in their own market. Stray Bullet, most 3-speeds are able to drive around town using only second gear. Yeah, you can. Absolutely, you can. Yeah. But yeah, if it gets a little slow in second gear there, like you're down at 800 RPM in second gear, and they don't really want to bolt, out of the hole at those RPMs. But yeah, you can do it if you just kind of drive it lazy. Yeah, for sure. Jeff Hutchins, it's an aftermarket crew cab. The company bought standard cabs, stretched the frame, and built their own rear cab and doors. It's more like a mega cab. The rear seat electric motors down into the bed. Oh, wow. Sounds very cool. Stray Bullet, OT. Gets noisy when things start to wear out. You meaning OD for overdrive? Not sure what the OT means, Stray Bullet. Josh Homan, the people that got rich in the old West were not the ones digging for gold. For the most part, it was the ones selling the implements. Oh, wow, really? Huh. Beagle Bob, maybe I'm weird, but I get quieter when I'm worn out. Yeah, mate, me too. It's hard in this heat. It really is. I'm feeling it right now. Just in the muscles. Just drains you, man. David Tyree, Jaguar, Triumph, Rover, Leyland, and Land Rover and Honda were assembled in Nelson. Okay. Yeah, there was quite a bit of assembly going on in New Zealand. Wasn't there some assembly? I seem to remember my old man going to watch, going to an assembly plant in Pororua. And I think it was either Fords or Valiants. I can't honestly remember which. But he was horrified because he saw them like trying to help get a door to fit, like with a big hammer and a piece of 4x2. They were just like wailing on this thing, making it, adjusting it, and he was horrified. And I always remember that because he would repeat the story often over the years about how they were like beating it to death with a hammer and a fork, like a mini sledge, in 4x2. Yeah, but I think that was pretty par for the course, really. I mean, I've used 4x2s and big hammers on many restorations. It's not as brutal as it sounds. Jeff Hutchins, I would love to have a 77 F250 four-wheel drive. The good grille, front discs. I want a 4-speed MP 435 so I can swap a 440 in it. Okay. Yeah, I'm that guy. I wish I would have bought one when they were cheap. Yep, everything's going up, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, you must have liked that Ford I had in there with the 392 Hemi in it then. That would have been up your alley. 5-speed. Andy Nickel, I think we do lap joints in wood because the glue doesn't penetrate and just sticks, but welding penetrates. But I don't know. Twin stick was the shortening the frame of a semi. Okay. Stray Bullet. John Studebaker got to start building wheelbarrows during the California gold rush. Really? Wow, that's pretty wild. Start building wheelbarrow. Well, that's certainly some progression, isn't it? From a one-wheeled vehicle to a reasonably successful four-wheeled vehicle. Studebaker had a good run for a while. They just didn't go on with it. Yeah. Jeff Hutchins, Beagle Bob. I thought I got quiet when I'm tired too. I'm worn out now, but here I am, chatty Cathy. You just got to have the right stimulus. You see, you got the right people that you're having the conversation with, and it just sparks the brain cells up a little. Granddad's junk. I think it was because you couldn't get US dollars. Canada being a Commonwealth country, it was much easier getting Yankee cars, and especially just after the war. Okay, that makes sense. I remember it was hard to buy new cars, and quite a ways through the 60s. I think possibly even into the 70s, you needed overseas funds and stuff to actually be able to buy a new car. Yeah, it was a different world, man, a different time. Stray Bullet, sorry. Don't worry about it, mate. It's all good. Jeff Hutchins, Levi's got started in San Francisco selling riveted jeans to miners. Now they sell them to miners. Oh, boom. Yes, I see what you did there. Very clever. Granddad's Junk, my 58 Savoy is Canadian assembled. There you go. Stray Bullet, Canada imported a lot of cars to New Zealand to avoid tariffs. Okay. Andy Nickel, I was told my Plymouth had a 313, whereas the American had a 318. Could be. What year was that, mate? I had a 63 Dodge with the 318 poly in it. At least it was supposed to be a 318 poly. That's what it was sold to me as, but I guess that could have been a 313. I don't know. Brad Eastham, Todd Motors and Pororua. That's it. Yep, you're right. Todd Motors, and that was Chrysler, wasn't it? That was Valiance and Mitsubishi and stuff like that, wasn't it? I do remember Todd Motors being very much Chrysler, and Hillman Hunters and stuff like that. Yeah. Mopar Man 78, evening. Good evening, sir. Good to have you along. Crane Nearing is a 4x2 like a 2x4. I never heard it that way. Yes, it's the same thing. It is a little confusing. It's a US thing. Yeah, it took me a little while to get my head around that when I first got here. But yeah, it's exactly the same thing. They just reverse the numbers. It's just what they got used to, And nobody's right or wrong. It's just the way it's become said. But yeah, I'd go into Lowe's or something like that and ask for the wrong thing. They'd look at you like, what? Granddad's junk. Okay, the 313 Poly was export size. They came to Aussie and New Zealand. So probably that 63 Dodge I had, which was a New Zealand car, that was probably a 313 then, right? There was me in 18 and so excited about having a 318. Huh. Oh, well, what you don't know doesn't hurt you. David Torrey, Todd Motors, Pororua, they later assembled Mitsubishi, yep. They also assembled Hillman Hunter in the 70s. My old man used to sell Hillman Hunters when they were new. Yeah, it's just pretty wild. The last one off the assembly line is in the Southwoods Museum. Oh, I didn't realise that. Wow, it's kind of cool. Adam Weston, hello there from Wales, UK. Well, welcome along, mate. We've got some friends in Texas that are Welsh, or at least the husband is the guy, and half of the couple is from Wales. Good guy, funny guy. Yeah. So, what time is it over in Wales? What time and what day is it over in Wales? Granddad's junk. The Todds did the Valiant as well up until the CL. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, given all that, I'm pretty sure it was a Valiant. My old man was talking about how they were beating on it with a hammer. Yeah. Jay Weiss, hey Kiwi, what do you think about electric cars? Looks to have died down a bit. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's kind of gone a bit quiet on the electric car front. There doesn't seem to be quite as much hate out there for them, but also not as much, positive. It's just quiet on the electric car front. I know a lot of companies have changed their outlook, on what's happening with electric over the next 5 years. Audi was set to drop the V8, and in favour of electrics, and they backtracked on that. A lot of the big manufacturers have changed their stance on electric. I may be stuck in the past. I might be a dinosaur, but I'm just not convinced that electric cars are the way to go. Hybrids, I can see a place for hybrids. And there's possibly a good place for electrics as city commuter cars, but not intercity. It's especially in the States. Like States is big. It's nice and flat for the most part, which electric cars love being flat. We're doing a massive push in New Zealand on electrics, and that's cooled right down. Especially now, it's becoming more and more apparent of the actual carbon footprint on electrics, how hard it is to get rid of the old, dead batteries, worn out batteries. There's number of issues to sort out. Andy Nichols, 62 Belvedere. Good, cool. Yeah, I had a 63 Dodge, and after that car, a couple of cars later, I had a 63 Belvedere. That was a cool car. So back to the electrics. Yeah, it's and New Zealand's not well suited to electric cars. It's very windy, very hilly. It's a volcanic island. The roads are up and down and very windy. Which electric cars don't like. They like just to hum along at a set speed on a nice flat piece of ground or countryside, and they get a reasonable range. But give them a hill, they don't like it. They do not like hills or big lows. So I see a future in hybrids, but not so much full electrics. JY, are you drinking apple juice on the rocks? Is that why you drink? No, mate, that is, well, no, it's Apple Jack. It's Jack Daniel's apple. So, yeah, it's their bourbon whiskey infused with a bit of apple liqueur or liqueur. There's there's lots of little weird things like that between America and / New Zealand, Australia. We call it liqueur, and Americans call it liqueur. It's just subtle changes. But yeah, Applejack. Mopar man, anybody have this issue? My 318 never overheats on the gauge, but it does start acting up after fully warmed up doing 65 down the road, and it starts cutting out. I found random plugs losing its gap. So what do you mean when you say losing its gap, buddy? You mean like closing or getting too big? Well, you'd have to explain that or just confirm that a little. It's 1:43 a.m. here in Wales. Wow, you're up late, mate. You're up late or really early. I'm not sure which, but hey, thanks for hanging in there till nearly 2 a.m. To chat with us. That's awesome. Mopar man, check the thermostat, etc. No issues. Head gap issue or cracked heads. Cutting out. Still got points in condenser. A lazy condenser and coil, for that matter, can give you issues with heat. Like most things electric, they don't like heat. And that's right from basic electrics right through to computers. Stray bullet. It has to be Wednesday. Yeah, I would say it was. Yeah, I would say it was Wednesday. It wouldn't be Thursday. I know it's Wednesday in New Zealand now, but it's not 1:43. It's going to be depending, probably around 10:43, something like that a.m. So yeah, Wales is probably going to be closer to US time. But yeah, it's probably 1:43 a.m. Wednesday. Chief Hutchins, my 78 Camaro had a turbo 350. It would shift into second just over 60 under full throttle. I think it had like 273 rear end gears. Yeah, that's the American manufacturers love that 280-ish number. 280, 273, there's very little difference. Because of the interstate, because of cruising speeds. I remember having a 67 Chevy, which had 283 and Power Glide in it, and that you could kick that, or you could manually shift it into low and rev it hard, which I was 18, 19 or something like that when I had that car. So that's what you did. You revved the shit out of it. And you could pull that into from drive to low at kind of 50. It was a bit brutal, and I'm not sure I'd do it today, but I did it back then. But yeah, tall gears. Josh Homan, I heard that some of these countries required local assembly of foreign branded cars with a certain amount of local parts. Yeah, it was all to do with tariffs and duties and stuff like that. They were trying to, particularly Australia and New Zealand, they were trying to encourage, in-country manufacturing. So, that's why they had, incentives to have a certain amount of local parts and stuff like that. Just to try and incentivize local industry, and it wasn't a bad thing, really, because if you just keep buying, and which is, that's one of the reasons America's got such a huge debt, is that America, is a consumer-orientated country, and we buy a lot of stuff, and the money keeps heading off overseas because they haven't, haven't looked after the local industry, like local manufacturing, and they've sent so much stuff offshore to China and places like that where local manufacturing can't compete. So local in your own country manufacturing is kind of important. You need it. We can't just keep throwing money offshore to get stuff that we want from offshore, because eventually you run out of money. Granddad's junk, tow a trailer with an electric car, you'll be walking home. Exactly. Yeah, you can't. And imagine, Granddad's right. Imagine this: backing your Tesla Plaid into the salt water down the boat ramp with the boat you've just towed there. Imagine that. Good Lord. Doesn't bear thinking about, does it? The electrical nightmares that would ensue once you dunked it. I wouldn't want to be in a 500 volt electric car backing into the tide in New Zealand. It sounds dangerous to me. Electric cars work good on the golf course. This is very true. Josh Homan, and how dangerous that lithium batteries are. Yeah, well, that's becoming more apparent. There's been more fires, electric cars catching on fire. And the electric brigade, say, well, gasoline cars or petrol cars catch on fire too, which they do. That's completely accurate. They do. But it's often due to bad electrics in the petrol gasoline car. And there's a tremendous amount more of them, but there's actually less fires. So it depends what little piece of people take little bites out of statistics and say, look at this, but they don't always give you the whole picture. Stray bullet, for a while they were building entire bodies in New Zealand. Yes, all the parts came in pre-stamped, and they were basically putting together a giant, monogram 1/24th scale kit. Like all the pieces would come in, and they would be, they call them CKD, which was completely knocked down, and it was completely knocked down, probably with the exception of like the big mechanical, like the motor, transmission, differential. They were together one-piece units, but they were all very much separate from the body, and like they had to assemble the body, weld it together, paint it, sound deaden it, undercoat it, whatever they were doing to it. And so they were built in New Zealand, probably not made in New Zealand because the parts weren't made there, but the car was built in New Zealand and Australia too, I believe. Oh, Andy Nickel, yeah, I like that car till the drunk T-boned me at the bottom of the hill. Oh, that sucks. Yeah. It's not like you could go and replace it easily, is it? Damn. Beagle Bob, have you had the Blackberry Jack? No, I haven't. I didn't even know it was a thing. Blackberry, that sounds quite nice, actually. I like Blackberry. I'll have to keep an eye out for that. Jeff Hutchins, I agree. A short trip commuter electric car is okay. However, it's not green, and we don't have the electrical grid to support many of them. As said, not for today. Yeah, that's the biggest problem with the electric cars, as I see it. And I'm not professing to be an expert on the subject, but it's just a certain amount of common sense. If you think about it, yeah, we can't charge. If they keep jamming electric cars down their throats and make everybody get one, how are they going to charge the cars? I mean, California's already saying, please don't. They're talking about banning all ICE engines or internal combustion engines, by 2030 or something. At the same, in the same week comes out, don't charge your electric cars because we're running low on power. We can't. In the middle of summer in California when it's hot and everyone's got AC running and there's not enough power to go around. So the the left hand's pushing electric cars down your throat, and the other hand's saying, "Well, no, don't get an electric car, but don't charge it up." Like, really? What the hell? Josh Homan, thanks. I heard of local content requirements in some countries to varying extents. Yeah, every country's different, and every government within that country, tends to chop and change and play around with quantities and stuff like that. So yeah, it. And now I've shot down the page again. I got a bit behind. Volfly, hey, welcome to the room, mate. Good to have you here. I like the Edison Motors diesel electric hybrid truck, locomotive style. Motor runs a generator while the axles are electric with a battery for energy storage. I like that guy. I follow him on YouTube, and yeah, I admire what he's doing. He's going head to head against the big boys. He's going head to head with the Canadian government, and he's sticking it to them. And I think like if I was a truck driver, I'd be there would certainly be a big part of me that wanted to buy his product just to help him out. Like. He comes across really good on camera. He seems like a really cool, down-to-earth guy. And he's got some good ideas. And, there's some people, like I don't count. The fact that I think he's a good guy doesn't count for anything. But he's got people supporting him, that do count, that can help him. He's got support from a lot of places for what he's doing. And I hope he'll be a name that is like people will look back in 30 years' time and go, yeah, he's the guy who started, who really got, these electro diesel trucks up and running. He seems to be doing pretty well at it. So go and check his YouTube channel out, Edison Motors. Stray bullet, either too much boost or possibly hydro locking. Mopar, too much boost? Didn't realise it was a boosted vehicle. Jay Weiss, old cars didn't have rear demister. Now, how did they unfog windows in the old days? You sent your kids over the back with no seatbelt to what the moisture off the fog off the window. Man, I can remember being my old man having. I think I might have had one as well. But you could buy like rear demister kits, and it was like it came in a roll. It was like a decal that had little steel very sort of thin wire film in it. It was built onto a self-adhesive clear film, and you stuck that on your back window and kind of wired it into your car electrical system. And that was a rear window demister. It was, and it looked, you could see that it was stuck on there. It was, like, it just wasn't pretty at all, but it did, get rid of the fog on your back window. And then, more and more they then started building it into the glass when they laminated it and stuff like that. Built when the windscreen was made. But there was a lot of those stick-on rear window demisters. Horrible idea. Well, it wasn't. No, it wasn't a horrible. By today's standards, it's a horrible idea. I should quantify that. Back then, it was actually pretty good, and it did defog your back window, and it gave you a, I don't know how big they were. Maybe trying to remember. 3 feet wide, maybe. And a foot high, ish. So it wasn't like the whole back window. It was just a window within the fogged up window that you could see through. So, but I can't imagine how many of those they sold. But you'd have trouble selling one today. Mopar, man, I find the random 1 or 2 plugs closed up with no gap. I even brought new plugs, factory replacement, no high compression. Okay, well, the gaps should not close up. Something's hitting them. Has to be. To close. Really, there's, some of the little spot, the center electrode or the little ground strap, will when a plug's done 30,000 miles or something like that, the gap grows because those two pieces that deliver the spark, the electrode and the ground strap, eat away with each spark, and the gap slowly increases. But to closed up, as far as I know, the only way is something hitting them, and that could be pieces of carbon, pieces. Is it after you've given it a pretty good rev? Just wondering if there's just the tolerances somewhere in the assembly of that engine are just not quite right. But to close up is a little unusual. Mostly stock engine, no booster. No, yeah. That's pretty weird. But how would you fix that? What would you do? What would I do? So is it, you say I find the random one or two, is it the same one or two plugs, or just it can be number 1, number 8, number 3, number 5, or is it 1 and 8 all the time? Josh Oman either had the kids wipe them off or just didn't bother, most likely. I can remember wiping the back window down for my old man, many times. And that was the days when we bounced around inside the car and, we'd climb from the back seat to the front seat, because there was no belt laws. Yes, I remember doing that. Mopar Man 78, I did a video about it on my channel. Okay. So, and nobody had any other bright ideas as to what it was? Volfly carbon buildup. That's exactly what I said. Brad Eastham, spacer on the carb. There could be too much heat in the base. I mean, you're saying that in regard to Mopar Man's plug issue. I don't know the heat if you were getting a lot of heat through to the carburetor, I don't know that it would create I can't see how it would create. And just that's me not being able to see it doesn't mean that it isn't, but I'm not aware of a way too much heat into the base of the carburetor would create a situation that would close the plug gaps up. Oh, there you go, Craig Nearing. I beat my parents' 66 Pontiac 326 with a power glide to death. It would shift out of low at 70. Yeah, they'd scream, They'd scream. They'd just rev and rev and rev. But I don't know I'm not actually sure what ratio low was on those things, but it was pretty darn tall. It was probably a 1.6-1.7 ratio gear. Given that first gear on most manuals is usually around 3.5 first gear ratio is pretty common around that number. With that in the power glide, I'd say it was given the size of the wheels, maybe 1.9, somewhere like that. The high ones for the first gear. What else we got here? Mopar Man Volfly engine is properly tuned and maintained, good fuel, etc. Volfly, how odd? Yeah. Greenhead's chunky. You could call it a Tesla submarine. Yes. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, you wouldn't catch me backing down a boat ramp in one of those things. No way. Jeff Hutchins, your kids wipe the window. Yeah, obviously, there's a theme there. We've always, sounds like not all of them maybe, but a lot of us have done it. I had to do that a lot as a kid in our 63 Fairlane. Yeah. Kind of, it's had to be good for something, didn't you, as a little 5-year-old or something, Paul Funk, my brother worked at a Ford dealership when they started using tall gears for gas mileage, and they would barely go up I-70 into the mountains. Yeah. The tall gears work on the flat, but not so much up hills. And that's kind of sucks when you've got, you know, a decent sized car with a V8 and you hit a hill and it slows down. That Mustang I built for my old man, it's now you know, it's back in New Zealand. I put a 5-speed in that and left. I ran out of time and money to do it, to be fair, but we left the 280 gear in it, and with the 5-speed and then 17-inch wheels, it's too tall, and you'll go down. I mean, I think the speed limit in New Zealand's like 60, not 70. But yeah, if you're going down the motorway, which is what we call the interstate, you're like 65, and you want to overtake someone or you hit a bit of an incline, and that's with a 302 and a Mustang, which is not a heavy car. Yeah, the fifth gear is too tall. It really does need a 350 gear in the rear. And I may take one of a set of those gears back one time to New Zealand and get someone to put them in, because it's just not it's not geared right. It would be a nicer car to drive with a 350 gear in it, even a 370, especially in New Zealand, because it's tight, twisty, up and down. You know, so that extra response, throttle response you get, you know, or vehicle acceleration response you get, you know, with like a 370 gear would be. I don't think you'd lose anything in gas mileage, because what you know, when I've been driving it, you end up like leaning further into the throttle when you're on an incline, or you know, you're trying to overtake someone at that 65, 70 mark, and you're in fifth gear, and so you roll more into the throttle, and it doesn't really respond, and you roll a bit further, and you know, your fuel mileage is going down the drain. So, you know, having that lower gear doesn't actually hurt your mileage that much, and putting massive tall rear gears in doesn't help that much, because, you know, at the end of the day, it takes X amount of energy to push, you know, X amount of weight, being the car, combined with wind resistance, you know, at a certain speed, and regardless of what your gear ratios are. You know, you could put some, you know, a 400 mile an hour gear in it, and the car won't pull itself out of its own way, and the fuel mileage will be horrible. So yeah, going taller and taller. They did figure that out, the manufacturers, but they were trying to, you know, improve the mileage, and they kind of went a bit too far. So. Nigel Townsend. Well, welcome along, man. Hi, Chris. Enjoying following you in the USA from New Zealand. I'm an old school Ford mechanic. Did some of my training down at the old Ford assembly plant in, scroll down, Petone. Yep. These days I'm restoring a 63 Galaxy 427. Nice. Cool old car. Ford man to the bitter end, huh? Yeah, good for you, bud. I sent a Galaxy back to New Zealand. Actually, a picture popped up on my memories on Facebook. Gosh, it was about 2000. Trying to remember now, 2015 or 16. A blue 2-door with I think that one had a Ford 28 in it. I'm trying to remember. It had twin fours and all that stuff on it. But yeah, bit muddy, bit Bondo ridden, and I did wonder how the guy was, you know, going to get it complied. But, you know, I mean, I helped him to send that car back. I didn't help him find it, and I didn't recommend that car. You know, he just said, you know, we worked out a deal, and I got it to my shop, and the transporter came and picked it up from there. And, you know, it was just kind of a favor. But yeah, it was a little muddy, and he knew that, and he didn't seem too bothered by it. But, you know, so presumably it's driving around in New Zealand somewhere now. So yeah, it's amazing how many old American cars, cool old American cars, not just the 4-door sedans, which is all you got when I was 20, you know. But now there's some cool a lot of cool old American cars in New Zealand now. Yeah, Paul Funk, cool car, Nigel. Yeah, exactly. Jay Wise, Jeff, not water. Right. Josh Homan, General Motors used to export knockdown kits of its cars to other countries. Yeah. Valve flight. My solution for putting out lithium batteries is using sodium silicate and water solution, water glass block sealer to put out the fire. Should encase it in glass. My nephew may try it out sometime. That's an interesting theory. Water glass block sealer. It doesn't actually need oxygen to burn, though, does it? Those lithium batteries, they don't. So you could seal it off from oxygen, but I believe, if the hype's to be believed, that it doesn't need oxygen to burn, like they'll burn underwater. But maybe, yeah, an interesting theory. I mean, hopefully someone comes up with a good way to put them out, because that's proving a problem. You talk to anybody in the fire department, and they hate electric car fires. They really do. They can't put them out. They really don't like electric cars, because they get to go and put out a few of them, and it just takes like all day to try and get them to a point where they can even move them. It's a problem. Jeff Hutchins, my uncle had an 85 four-wheel drive F250. He towed his boat to the lake in the off-season for testing. Forgot to free the boat. Oops, you see where this is going. I forgot to free the boat from the trailer, and it floated the rear wheels off the ramp. He started honking. I bet he did. So I didn't drag the truck into the water, thankfully. A few people have done that. Valve fly. Oop, God, I hit the button too many times. It shot up the page. Hang on. I need to go a bit faster, don't I, guys? Wow, you guys are getting way ahead of me. Valve fly. My nephew and brother are firemen, so they may get a chance to test my idea. Mate, I hope it works. You'd probably be onto something. You'll probably end up, if you can come up with that solution and get the rights to it, then you'll probably be a very wealthy man. Jay Wise, hey Kiwi, why did they build more fiberglass? Why didn't they build more fiberglass cars like Corvette? Cheaper to make, right? Steel and chrome was more to build, and that's why plastic became popular in the 80s. Okay, it's kind of a layered answer. Fiberglass cars like the Corvette are cheaper to make, particularly the early ones, because you didn't need the tooling setup was a fraction of the price. Making molds for fiberglass is a fraction of the price of making the tooling stamping dies. To stamp out metal panels. So they could do small runs, see how successful it was, if the public liked it, and keep going. And then I think they kept the fiberglass with the Corvette. I suspect, and it's just a gut feel, that, the Corvette became known as the fiberglass car. And a lot of people saw them as being lighter, which was really misinformation. The fiberglass cars, when the fiberglass is thick enough to last, and be able to do 100,000 miles. The fiberglass was fairly thick and really wasn't that light. Remember, the thickness of sheet steel to put a car together. A lot of the outside skin, is a 1/16 of an inch thick, maybe. Whereas the fiberglass bodies are like 3/8 of an inch thick. So they're heavier than you'd think. Then when they first started with the Corvette, it was a bit of, let's see if this works, and so it was a cheap way of bringing a car to market. But it certainly wasn't lighter. And as far as mass production goes, when you're making big numbers, it's worth tooling up to stamp them out of steel. But Corvette's stuck with that fiberglass and now composite materials. which is a real supercar trait thing when they get into all these carbon fibers and stuff like that, and the cars are truly light. But back in the 50s, when they were making fiberglass, they were using a lot of fiberglass, and weight was really not what it was about. Cheaper, yeah. And plastic became popular in the 80s because that was quite cheap, but that was plastic, not fiberglass. I mean, quite different products. And plastics was, people were trying to use plastics for everything around that in the 80s, and it would shatter. Well, I mean, most of us have seen what happens when you bump into a plastic fender. They just shatter, and especially once they're 10 years old and the plastic's been through 5,000 or 6,000 heat cycles in the sun and cooling off at night, and that heat from the sun bakes the plastic and it gets brittle. Stray bullet. They started off importing just the chassis to New Zealand. Local coach builders were building the bodies from scratch. Early automobile bodies were built like carriages. Yes, that's right. That was true worldwide too. Rolls-Royce was doing that in England. They would build chassis with a motor, like a driving chassis, and then different companies would put the bodies on it. So, it was kind of two different industries almost, the making of the drivable chassis and then the body to go over it. Dave just tuned in to say thanks for blurring out the butt crack during the frame cutting, but nice job. Yes. Oh dear. I had to. That was funny. I really didn't realize I was doing that until I started editing, and putting the camera behind me was not a good choice. But I was trying to get trying to show you guys what I was doing, and it seemed like the best place to put the camera, and it's like, oops. So I had to quickly do a crash course. This was Sunday morning, bloody thrashing around on YouTube and places trying to figure out how to do the blurring. So you live and learn, eh? So next time I'll either won't put the camera behind me or I'll wear a much longer shirt. So to spare you guys the graphic details. But and I had a few funny comments on that. So it's all good fun. I mean, I'm a car guy first, and a movie maker about 21st, or video maker. Jeff Hutchins, no cell phones back then and locking hubs. He was there for a few hours with the diesel exhaust burbling underwater before someone came along to lock his hubs in. Oh no, really? Oh shit. Oh well, that'd be a day you won't forget. Standing on the brakes. Yeah, I bet he was. Oh dear, that would have been a sucky day. Stray bullet. Canada regulations are giving Edison a hard time. Yeah, I've seen a couple of his shorts. Them talking about how they're trying to stop him using the diesel engine as a generator and make it comply with different rules. And I saw one the other day where he's saying it'll be legal if he used that same diesel generator if he lifted it off the back of the truck, put it on the ground beside the truck, and charged it. But to actually drive along in the truck and charge it, whilst driving on the highway, they're saying that the diesel generator doesn't meet emissions, but the emissions really apply to vehicles that drive using diesel. So there's this no man's land, this grey area was, does the diesel drive the truck? No, but in a way it does, because without the diesel generator, the truck won't go. So while the diesel isn't directly connected to the wheels, like mechanically connected to the wheels, the diesel generator is what makes the wheels go round and round, the wheels on the bus and all that. So he's into some tricky areas there, which they need to figure out. And I think he will. This is not I don't think this is the first problem he's run into, trying to do this, diesel electric hybrid truck. And it's just a matter of getting with the right people in government that, to see some sense and see what he's trying to do, to get it, the rules tweaked to suit what he's doing. That the writing of the regulations are for trucks that the diesel engines drive the wheels directly and they have to meet certain emissions, which is not a bad thing. That on its own, in the situation that the rules were designed for, is a good thing, really. We need to have some emissions controls to, but they just, he's come up with a new concept for road going trucks. It's an old concept for trains, but it's new for trucks. They just need to rewrite the rules, and he needs to get someone on side. Someone said to me once, like, you don't stop until you find someone who can say yes, who has the ability to say yes. Don't just take no from the first person that says no, because that person probably doesn't have the authority to say yes, even if they wanted to. What you do is you have to keep pushing until you find someone that actually has the power to say yes and or no. You need to find someone who can say yes to what it is you're asking for, and don't give up until you do. So hopefully that's what's going to happen. Andy Nickel, we stuck frost shields on our windows. Okay. Oh, is that like on the outside you're talking about, Andy? Vilefly, yep. Dave, what's behind me is not important. Yeah, that's a famous old line, isn't it? Jay Weiss, old cars didn't have seatbelts, turn signals, but they had cigarette lighters. Very good point. Very good point. Yes, they did have cigarette lighters, didn't they? Jeff Hutchins, Dave, what if you're in a reserve? Oh, well. Yes, that's a very good point, Mr. Hutchins. It's a very good point. Dave, go slow and stop when something goes bump. That's why they call them bumpers. Well, yeah, it's hard to argue with that logic, mate. That's valid. Jeff Hutchins, spark plugs may just be too long, wrong plugs. Yeah, I did wonder, that did cross my mind, but it would be worth getting one of those little cameras to look down the plug hole and see if there's any evidence of contact between the crown of the piston and the spark plug tip. Typically, when plugs are too long and they're going to hit the pistons, first time you start putting new plugs in, first time you turn it over, smack, and the plug gap's gone, not running okay, and then it sounds like he gets on it a little bit and it hits there. But I mean, if you're really revving the shit out of it, you do get some stretch in conrods and pistons and stuff like that. So that's why you can't set an engine up with a piston to head clearance of 0, because that's okay, or like 1 thou, because shit does stretch. But it's usually at fairly high revs. That's not an impossibility by any means. Don't know, but I would be wanting to get one of those endoscope things and deals and shove it down the plug hole and see if you can see it's been hitting, or just that'll pull the head. It sounds like he's tried most things, and could be getting close to time to pull the head off and do some measuring, and see just what's going on. Put some, that builder's clay, modeler's clay on the crown of the piston. Bolt the head back, loosely back down, put the head back on, turn the motor over, and see how much clearance you've got from the spark plug. If it's 5 thou or something like that, then maybe he's revving it hard enough for things to move enough, and it's just tagging the ground strap on the plug. It's possible. Jay Weiss, what was the most popular car in New Zealand? GM, Holden, Ford, or Mopar? Most popular. Yeah, it's hard to say what was most popular. Hard to say what was most popular in the USA. Maybe equally popular. What would be the most popular? Holden and Ford were more popular than Mopar. It depends a little bit on the year too. That we're talking about on a yearly kind of basis, a 5-year, a decade. As far as like the big three, which you had here or have here in the States, GM, Ford, and Mopar. Mopar was always third here, and it was pretty much, as far as I know, it was pretty much always third in New Zealand and Australia. Ford and Holden, that's a lot closer, and a lot of. I mean, Toyota, for the longest time, Toyota was the number one selling vehicle in New Zealand, but we're talking more in the kind of 90s, 2000s, 2010s even. Toyota was the number one selling. But even that was a little rigged. Ford would get close to them at times, and Toyota would just go out and dump cars, like with rental car companies and stuff like that, to get their numbers up. They many times over the years, they bought, like it was worked out on a monthly basis. Each month they'd come up with who sold the most cars, and multiple times a year they would dump Toyotas into the market, through rental companies and stuff like that, just to keep maintaining that number one spot. So does that mean they were the most popular in New Zealand? Maybe not. Granny's Junk Toyota has been for years, yeah. That's what I was saying. Mopar, man. Usually the same cylinder plugs. No white smoke out the pipes. No coolant in oil plugs. Don't smell like coolant. Stock replacement plugs. No wrong plugs. I even check plug numbers. You've either got to look, mate, yeah. Something's going on. Something's forcing the plugs to close the gap up. The gap is not shrinking through some heat thing like that. Something's, in my opinion, something's got to be touching the plug, the ground strap on the plug, and closing it up. There's so many weird things can happen. Maybe maybe you're putting the right plugs for the engine, and maybe the engine's got the wrong heads on it, or different model heads slightly and stuff like that. Someone's chain or heads. You're really going to either need to look down the plug hole with a camera, the little mini cameras, or pull the heads off and start measuring shit. That would be my assessment. John Kleeman, if one wanted to do a rally style car in the US approximating a British Escort, where would you start? A Capri, Fairmont, Fox Body, or a Mustang? British Escort's a pretty small car. The British Capri would be close. They were a little bit longer than an Escort. The American Capri that I've seen is really just a Fox body with some slightly more flared fenders on them. Like they had a Mercury Capri, which was a Fox body Mustang. And a Fox body Mustang is a lot bigger than an Escort. I'm not sure what you would use approximating a Ford Escort. American didn't make a lot of small rear-wheel drive cars, did they? Didn't make a lot of small cars full stop. Now, I'm assuming is where my head's going is you're talking like the Mark 1 and Mark 2 British Escorts, which were a small car. Those cars came out with a 1.1 litre engine. That was the smallest they put in them. but they came out with a 1.1, a 1.3, and a 1.6 engine. Typically, there was a few variants on that on the high performance month. They did make some 2-litre ones and stuff like that. But that car was small enough to have a 1.1, like 1100cc engine pushing it around. And like my Mustang, one of the cylinders is 1100cc. So yeah, it's 1100 is a pretty small 4-bang. I'm not sure what you'd use. I don't know what to suggest. I mean, Fairmont is too big for a rally car. Fox, the closest out of what the options you've given me there are like the Fox body Mustang. That's a fairly compact Mustang, and you could rally that. But you'd want a V8 in it, which one of the problems with V8s and rallying is the V8s have so much torque, they wheel spin everywhere. It's very hard to get traction on dirt with a V8, which is why when you look back historically, the TR8, the Triumph TR8 was one of the, that I recall, it was about the only V8 rally car that there was, and they had some success, but it was typically on the faster rallies. You gave them a tight, twisty rally, and the TR8 with it had the 3.5-litre Rover V8 covered in side draft Webers. It was making probably 350, 400 horse, and it was just buzz rear tires off, and it just was forever wheel spinning. It didn't go as well as a good healthy 2-litre 4-banger for rallying purposes in 2-wheel drive. Yeah, so yeah, Fox body Mustang, something small and rear-wheel drive. Mustang 2. What other small cars did the Americans make, really? I'm trying to think. Truly small. I mean, small American car is a different thing to a small English car. Vilefly, the only other thing I've seen that can close plug gaps and crack the porcelain is detonation. Really? I've not heard of that. I've not heard of detonation causing plug gaps to close. Okay. Not saying you're wrong, mate. I'm not. I've just not heard of that before. Which, I mean, I'm not an engine guru, so detonation can cause some weird shit to happen, no doubt. But I've not personally heard of it closing gaps. But I'm guessing you have, Vilefly. So there you go. Granddad's junk, John, pick up a Ford Anglia. Yeah, that's a rare car here, man. That's a rare car here. Yeah, 1600 315 console. That's what you're talking about, Granddad's junk, isn't it? When you say 315 disc, 315 console. 2-barrel Weber. She will fly. Twin 2-barrel Webers. Yeah. That would be good. Jay White just put an LS in the Mustang. Oh, here we go. We're going to have a little mini riot now. Don't put an LS in the Ford. Oh, my God. Yeah, but yeah. Mopar Man, my guess is the heads, gaskets, or heads themselves, once heated up with the cooling system pressure, causes a leak to spray the plugs, rapidly cools the plug tip, closing the gap in the plugs. You may be right, Mopar Man. I personally think it's going to be a mechanical clearance issue. I think something's hitting something, not water. I mean, is it consuming water? Is it using coolant? Is it getting hot, overheating? I don't remember you mentioning that. Valve flow, never saw that happen unless it detonated. Greenland's junk. I've seen it at one clocked at 122. That would be in England. Oh yeah, you could. Yeah. Yep. I think that's very believable. Valve flow, when oil is introduced into a combustion chamber, it can cause detonation. Yes, there's multiple things can cause it for sure. Mopar man, no oil smoke. Stock timing, correct, mate. Yeah. Jeff Hutchins, yeah, if you lump all the GM brands together, they've been top sellers in the US for a long time. Fortunately, Mopar has always been a distant third. Yeah, it has. It has. I mean, sold a lot of cars, still in third place though, by a decent. It wasn't like they were snapping at their heels. But yeah, no, they've been a wee way behind. But in saying that, that still counts for an awful lot of cars. Christopher C. Maybe the motor inhaled something. Yeah, that wouldn't happen unless it's something, whatever it was stuck in a piston and like beaten into the crown and creating it. But that's why I think you need to look down the bores with a bore scope, endoscope, bore scope, mini camera, whatever you want to call it, and have a look around in there and see if it tells any stories, man. See if it tells any stories. You can usually see detonation on the crown of a piston. So yeah, I'd be delving into that. And if you just can't get a bore scope, and I believe you can buy pretty cheap ones that just hook in, like plug directly into your iPhone or phone, and will give you a view. Quite how crystal clear it is, I don't know, but I've seen little shorts there, where they buy, learn more here button on the bottom of the short, and they try and sell you the stuff. So yeah, one of those I think would be probably a good investment. Now, there you go. Shot down the thing. Shot down the thing. Now hang on. Where we go? Oh well. Yeah, I was way behind. Okay. Oh wow. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna miss a few of the comments out. Sorry guys, I'm just getting too far behind. Firefly, I saw a Saturn take out a Ford Taurus. It was glorious. The Saturn had minimal damage. The Taurus a catastrophic damage. All the plastic, I guess. Josh Homan, yes, they used to demonstrate Saturn's dent resistance by having people kick the doors, then one man split one. What about old Elon Musk when he cracked the window in his bloody obscene truck of his, when they were trying to demonstrate how tough they were and he broke the damn window in it. Oops. Mopar man, no detonation under acceleration in the road or at idle in park. When I regap the plugs, the engine just purrs, no issues. Something's got to be tapping them. In my opinion, something's tapping them and closing them up. And chances are it's the piston. But yeah, you got to get a look in there. You got to get, if it's touching the plug electrodes, it's smacking them. It should leave a mark. You should be able to see something. Jeff Hutchins, I watched the fireman watch a VW bus burn in the high school parking lot, the rear anyway. They said there's no putting the magnesium block out once it started burning. I heard Navy guys say the same. Yes, magnesium burns. It does burn and you can't put it out. The heat generated is phenomenal. Water will not put it out. Dave, Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, plastic front fenders, yeah. CC, hi Kiwi, hey man, well, welcome along. Good to have you here. Peel Bob, maybe a suspender company will sponsor a video. There you go. All sponsors welcome. Yes, send your stuff over. Granddad's Junk, what are your plans for the poly heads on March? Mate, I haven't got a lot of plans. I'll probably do a little bit of home porting, which really will, be more about just cleaning some stuff up rather than going crazy. I'm not trying to build a screamer out of it. The only reason for stroking it is that it is just to give it more cubic inches, just to give it that torque. It's a big car, The 318 is it's not a big engine for that size car. So just taking it out, to 400-ish cubic inches, a modern cam. Clean the heads up a little bit, make sure we got some good compression, and that's all I'm looking for. So, might get rid of some of the big stumbling blocks in the if there is something like that, just clean them up. I'm not. It's a real black art. Porting heads is quite a science, and not something that I'm super up with, but if there's big casting flashes or just some big ugly lumps in the ports, then we'll just clean them up. And that'll do it. We're going to rely mostly on, one, it'll be fresh, and two, it'll be 80 cubic inches bigger, which just that has to help, and I'll be happy then. I think a couple of 4 barrels on it, away we go. There is a guy over here that will port the heads, and I think it was, I'm trying to remember what he told me. I think it was about $2,500 to do a port and valve job on the heads, which is not outrageous. I'm just not sure about dropping that much money with a guy who I don't know. I don't know how good he is. It's often when you're porting a cylinder head, what looks like what you would think would work in changing the shape of a port, it doesn't work often. There's a real black art. It's a science, and the guys who are genuinely good at porting heads won't tell you that much about it, because it's something they've figured out over decades of trying things. And so I'm just gonna KISS theory, keep it simple, stupid. Mopar man, I have a set of Mopar 302 casting heads at the machine shop. I'll be swapping them out for these stock 318 heads, and we'll be using Cometic or Felpro Racing head gaskets with ARP head bolts. Well, there you go. Just do your measuring. Do your measuring and make sure shit's clearing. But I mean, you're talking about different. You really need to do that anyway, because you're putting different heads on it. And you need to know where you're at, especially given the issues that you've been having. But once you get the old heads off, all your questions may well be answered right there once you lift the head. But it would suck to be doing all, swapping heads out and doing all that stuff and then still have the same issue. That would suck. Stray bullet diesel electric, it won't move without the diesel engine. Yeah, and that's the problem that Edison Motors is having, is that someone in the government saying, well, the diesel motor is used to drive the truck, so therefore it has to meet emissions. Whereas a diesel generator does not have an emissions criteria on it. So there's different rules and regulations, But so is it a generator or is it the motor for the truck? That's the conundrum they've kind of got, Volfly sand is the usual thing for putting out a magnesium fire. Okay. They hope the sand will melt and cover the burning magnesium. Okay. Pop's Mustang shop. I always wear an extra large shirt to the gym when I work out, so I don't show the plumber's crack in the gym. Fair enough too. I'm sure all the other gym goers are most appreciative of that. But hey, yeah. You live and learn, eh? I just didn't think about it at the moment. Especially in that heat, I have like your jeans stick to you when you're just sweating all day, and they stick to you, and they just head south. Jeff Hutchins, my wife and daughter got rear-ended by a semi about 20 mile an hour. They were in a 2000 Suburban. Both front doors came up. Ooh, wow. Both front doors came open, messed up bumper and hitch. Doors still closed almost perfectly. It drove away. Okay, so you mean the doors popped open with the impact, or you mean both front doors still open? The way I read that, it sounded like the front doors popped open with the impact, which would not be good. Semi got towed, really. Also rear-ended by a Chevy pickup, still driving it. I named it the Battle Burb. Good name for it, yeah. Andy Nickel, inside there were 4 different sizes for different windows. They would crack during the winter, so we'd have to scrape them off and put on new ones every winter. Oh, Lord. Yeah. The holes. Hey, man, welcome along. Kiwi, I saw something the other day. DeLorean is bringing out an all-electric car. I think it's called the Alpha 5 or something. DeLorean? Didn't think DeLorean had been a thing for years. Speaking of DeLoreans, though, I've got one booked in. It's coming in to my shop. It's kind of, I got it in purely, honestly, for the video aspect of it. It's done 10,000 documented miles. It's been sitting in a museum. Apparently, it's not running properly, and the guy can't find anyone to work on it. So he tried me, and I'm like, look, I haven't laid a hand ever on a DeLorean to work on it. Wise, I mean, I've sat in one, but I've never turned a wrench on one. And I said, look, I'll have a look and I'll see what I can do. And whatever time I spend on it is time I spend on it. And if it's still not running right, still going to get a bill. I was, not trying to scare him off, but making it very clear that I wasn't making promises I couldn't deliver on. I mean, it's an engine. It's a Renault engine, I believe, in the old DeLorean. And maybe, hopefully, it just needs some fresh gas and some plugs and some basic mechanical stuff, and we can get it going on its way. But if it's got something weirdly DeLorean or Renault going on, then I may well end up having to hand it back and say, sorry, it's above my pay grade, and here's the bill, because I'm not going to take it on the premise that if I can't fix it, I won't charge you, because I don't need to do that. So we'll see what happens. But that's coming in, I think, sometime next month. It's coming in. I forget now, but I have to look at my diary. So look out for that video. The holes is bringing out, and all the electric cars, and I should, yeah, autocorrect, yeah, and all electric car, yeah. Jeff Hutchins just got a notification about an Uncle Tony video dropping. I'm staying here. I'll watch it later. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Stray bullet. It does come with a kilo of coke in the trunk, like the original DeLorean. Or does it? Not it does. Does it come with a kilo? Oof. Volfly, all electric, only good for forklifts and movie cars driving inside enclosed areas. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think electric's good for a little more than that, to be fair. I'm back. Just about in time to say goodnight. Damn it. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that. What did I miss? Driveway of Misfits. Shut up. Hey, mate. Welcome along, Mr. Freemesser. So, what are you buying there, Mr. Freemesser? I missed that bit. Jeff Hutchins stuck around. Good on you, mate. Yeah, well, what did I miss? Celestial electromagnetic interference, most likely. You think so? Orlando Pockets. Hey, welcome along, mate. Welcome along. There you go. Jay Weiss, hey Kiwi, what's the latest with you and Tony? There is no latest. I just never heard from him again. And you know, I'm not going looking for him. So yeah, I guess it just is what it is. Yeah. Orlando Pockets, hey Kiwi, looks like you had a lot of fun shortening that track. Actually, it was quite interesting. And I've done it before, so it wasn't new. What was new was, like, I've done a number of Chevys. That's a really easy chassis shorten. They've got a nice horizontal flat bit of frame, and it's parallel. They run parallel forward to back with each other. The dent side forward, which I've got, they're actually on an angle. They're narrower at the front than it is at the back. So when you chop that section out, you've got a mismatched, misaligned piece of chassis. So doing that step cut actually worked really well. That gave me, 4 points that I could, bend, the upper part in and the lower part out, and make everything line up. And it looks pretty slick now, even if I do say so myself. Yeah, I was pretty happy with the way it came out. Jay Weiss, it was the Tony question and pros. No, mate, it wasn't that at all. No. Volfly, need to buy some Applejack. Yeah, you do, mate. It's nice stuff. Jay Weiss, Tony said the door is open. You should make up. It was a great team to watch. Does he live close to you, neighbours? Tony lives about 45 minutes away. So, yeah, it's pretty close. That's pretty close. 40 minutes, 45, something like that. I hadn't heard that. That's the first time I've heard that. Dr. Art was over at my place today. He's never said anything, but I think he's firmly on the fence, trying to stay out of it. But I mean, just life goes on. I don't need the drama, to be honest. It's interesting that he said the door's open, but I mean, to me that's a little bit backwards. What he did wasn't cool, and if he wants to talk to me about it and say, hey, I acknowledge that it wasn't cool what I did, and should have done it differently, and can we move on? The answer would be yes, but I'm not heading over to him to, apologise to him, because I didn't do a single thing wrong. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Andy Nickel. Well, yeah, I mean that's a more succinct way of putting what I was trying to say, Andy. You hit the nail right on the head there. Yeah. Jay Weiss, I asked him on his podcast, and he said it was up to me. Well, yeah, that's a cop out on Tony's part, in my opinion. He knows he shouldn't have done what he did, but he did it anyway. That's Tony's MO, and he's said that. He's made no secret that it's better to ask for forgiveness later than permission beforehand, and he didn't ask permission beforehand, and he hasn't asked for forgiveness afterwards. So fuck it, yeah. Volfly. Well, it was Tony who wanted to go Crusader with someone else's customer. That's exactly it. He put me in a very embarrassing situation, or it was for me. I felt like a piece of shit with my customer. And Tony has the advantage of having no customers. You guys are Tony's customers. You are the guys that put the food on his table. My customers that bring their cars to me to get fixed are the people that put the food on my table. So I have to look after them. And when you make a promise to them, you got to stick to it. And Tony kind of pulled the rug out from under me. So, yeah. Volfly, yeah, best to avoid trouble if one can. Yeah. Jay, can we know what it was? It was over that. I thought it was pretty common knowledge, but short. Trying to make a long story short, I had a car brought to me that the guy bought off Gateway Classics. It was an absolute horror story. Tony was there. We were like the three of us, me and Tony and Dr. Art, were looking at. Tony and Dr. Art just rolled up out of the blue. I wasn't expecting them, and just as I was looking over this car, so the three of us ended up looking at it. It was like, oh my God, this car's a horror story, which it was. And Tony's like, oh, this is going to make a fantastic video, which it would have did. I said, well, hang on a minute. This is a customer's car. We can't just, it's not like it's my own, or I can't just do with it what I please. I need to talk to the customer. I've done a few of those videos where we've looked over and we've criticized cars that are in poor condition, but that's with the customer's permission. It's their car. It's not for me to go slagging them off on YouTube unless they're okay with it. So I spoke to this guy, told him the issues, said we wanted to do a video on it. How did he feel about that? And his reply was, wait, just hold. He took on board all the things that told him was wrong with it. And he said, let me go back to Street Side Classics and see what they're prepared to do to fix it or to make it right or whatever. And he said, once I've figured out a deal with them, if they don't help out, put the video up. And he even said if they do help out after the fact, once I've got my money back, you can put up whatever video you want, was to quote the customer. So whichever way you looked at it, the video was going to air. But the customer said wait until he'd spoken with the dealer, which is, that's just fair. That's just being decent about it. Like, we didn't know, we still don't know whether Street Side Classics knew quite the extent of how bad the car was. So, it would only be decent of him, the customer who bought it, to go back to them and said, hey, look at these issues. What you going to do about it? So he wanted to do that. So, made it very clear to Tony. We filmed the video because they were there and the car was there and I was there. So we filmed the video and I said to Tony, you have to wait until I get the green light from the customer to publish the video. And Tony's like, sure, no problem. We'll just wait. We'll film the video. We'll just put it up when he says go ahead. Tony shot the video, went home, edited the video, posted it. First I heard about it was when the customer rang me up, furious that I'd posted the video. I hadn't posted the video. Tony had, against my wishes, against his complete agreement not to publish the video. He just did it anyway because he saw the money that a video was going to make, and that made him a lot of money. That video was a big video, made him a lot of money, and that was what he saw, was dollar signs. That's my opinion anyway. And then he really fought me on taking the video down. I told him he needed to take the video down immediately, and he didn't go, oh shit, sorry about that, I'll take it down right away. And he wouldn't. And it was 24 hours before he took it down. He took it down for 2 hours and put it back up again. And it's like, okay, fuck you. You just screwed me over. That's it. I'm out. Yeah, there you go. Now, Jeff Hutchins, nobody could accuse you of bad-mouthing Tony, neither will I, but it's Tony's way or the highway. He'll say that too. Yeah, you were the best addition to his live shows. Nothing against Dr. Art either. Yeah. Driveways Mr. Tony threw you under the bus for views. Yeah, he did. It's exactly what he did. There's, and I don't think I'm being bitter and twisted about, like seeing it through, angry eyes. I think that's just exactly what he did. But anyway, we've gone over time because we missed a bit there. I got disconnected and we got on the dreaded Tony subject. Yeah. So what Tony wants to do about it is up to him, but I'm not going there cap in hand. He can come. He made way more money out of me with the videos he shot at my shop than I ever made out of him. He did help me. He helped me get to the channel, to where it was at that point. He did help. I give him that. Absolutely. He plugged me. He pushed me. He showed me things to do and gave me a lot of information on how to kind of get rolling on YouTube. He did all that. But it comes to dollars and cents. He made way more out of me than I ever made out of him. And so, yeah, he got one very good last video. That's it. Christopher C., thank you for the contact cement for dash pad tip. Oh, good. I'm glad it worked for you, mate. All right. Okay, guy. What's this? Sergeant Mustang. On a positive note, Kiwi, I was able to buy a 61 Chrysler in Canada and made it all the way back to Los Angeles. Wow. That's awesome. Thanks for your advice and like seeing large mud videos. Cool, man. That's awesome. 61 Chrysler. Great car. And that's a big journey. It's a big journey. Awesome, man. Jeff Hutchins, I thought that was the shadow. Good to know the truth. Okay. All right, guys. Well, it's about 9:10, so let's call it a day, call it a night. Sergeant Mustang, it has mouse nests and dirt in the rocker panels. We'll want your advice next time. Okay, let's catch up on that. Tell me, come in next Tuesday and, make some notes on what you want to ask, and I'll help you as much as I can. It's a cool car, 61 Chrysler. All right. Okay, guys, we've got to go. I got to get some sleep and, hit the floor running in the morning. More cars to fix. So, all right. Well, look after yourselves. Have some fun. Get out there and drive those cars and, be good. All right. See you guys. Take care.